Previously, in the Danny Doyle cinematic universe, I decided, foolishly, to attempt to solo Pokemon with just Luvdisc, one of the worst Pokemon in all of existence. Because it's shaped like a heart, I thought it would be cute to name it after my girlfriend, but it has just resulted in me saying mean things about a Pokemon that I named after my girlfriend, which doesn't feel like the most romantic thing in the world, so sorry about that. While Misty and Lieutenant Surge were pretty difficult and the rival was consistently a bit of a roadblock, otherwise Luvdisc actually performed surprisingly well. She's not so much a glass cannon as a glass super soaker, but it's enough to get the job done. However, glass cannons and glass super soakers are fairly one-dimensional, and when they run into a problem, there's not really that much they can do to solve it. And these next 6 trainers are a series of problems. So, let's see how I handle it. First up is my rival, and for someone picking out of only the first 150 Pokemon, I have to say the Generation 1 and Generation 3 Remake rival actually has a pretty decent team. Pidgeot is probably the weakest link, but it can be very annoying with Sand Attack if you can't one-shot it, which I can't. I can't one-shot it. All 3 of the Generation 1 starters are extremely strong, and in this instance, Venusaur presents problems of being able to hit me with super effective Razor Leafs for potential critical hits, or being able to status me, or being able to just grind away with Synthesis and waste my Ice Beam PP, because I'm not going to be killing Venusaur with not very effective moves. When combined with the accuracy drop from Sand Attack, this becomes an extremely difficult wall. However, there's nothing for me to spend my money on anymore, and even if there were, I have basically infinite money. So the fastest method of grinding is to simply throw my Luvdisc into the rival battle over and over again, hoping that eventually I either get lucky or get enough level ups that I am able to take down Venusaur. I do think regardless the best strategy is to attempt to confuse Venusaur with Sweet Kiss. Ice Beam itself is probably a 3-shot, and I cannot survive a single Razor Leaf, so I kind of need to rely on RNGesus, which will be a consistent theme throughout these last 6 battles. Eventually it does all come together, however. Venusaur spams growth enough times and hits itself in confusion enough times that I am able to take it down with a series of Ice Beams combined with the self-inflicted confusion damage. That's not the end of the fight, however. Rhyhorn is fairly trivial because it's 4x weak to my stab moves, but Gyarados is once again a problem. Intimidate lowers my attack, which is fine because Surf and Ice Beam are both special anyway, but I can hit it at most for neutral with Ice Beam. For this reason, I decide to go for the Confusion strat. I'm not certain what Gyarados' moveset is, but for some reason it doesn't use a single physical move despite its extremely high physical attack. Hydro Pump is also resisted by Luvdisc, so the AI is kind of wacky. After absolutely destroying Growlithe with Surf, Alakazam comes out, and all he does is fire off a Disable before getting 2-shot, so yeah, I guess Venusaur was actually the hardest thing in the fight. Moving right along, there are no mandatory trainers in Generation 1's Victory Road, and they did not change this in the remakes. They also didn't change the really annoying boulder shoving puzzle, so I guess you win some, you lose some. Regardless, we can just immediately challenge the Elite Four. Now, as a reminder, I banned the TMs for Attract and Double Team in all of my solo runs, unless the Pokemon I am using can learn those moves naturally as part of its level up learn set. In this particular instance, Luvdisc learns Attract at level 28, which means I am allowed to use the Attract TM. Just to quickly dive into my reasoning behind it, both Double Team and Attract are fairly powerful and fairly centralizing TMs that almost every Pokemon can learn. They both rely on RNG, so they aren't reliable in a competitive sense, but they are extremely strong because, especially Double Team, if you stack it up and get your evasion high enough, nothing will hit you. Attract is a little bit less powerful, but takes less time to set up. Basically, if you are the opposite gender of the opposing Pokemon, you can use Attract and give them essentially a 50-50 to use a move every turn. This is actually the reason that I'm using a female Luvdisc instead of a male one. In earlier generations, trainers' Pokemon are predominantly male. It varies from game to game, but as a general rule of thumb, most Pokemon will have the gender of the trainer that owns them, at least in earlier generations. This is not always consistent, but it is a good rule of thumb if you cannot find reliable information on what gender specific Pokemon are. In this instance, the trainer that I am most worried about is the champion, whose entire team is male, so Attract can be used on any one of them. Additionally, it can be useful against a Lance, especially because not all of his Pokemon are 4x weak to Ice, and like I said, Luvdisc is kind of a glass super soaker, so I'll take everything I can get. Now, if you're wondering why I don't ban the TMs for Pokemon that get them in their level up learn set, I think it's because Attract feels like part of the flavor of Luvdisc, and I'm not going to force myself to handicap my 4th move slot just to be able to use it in the few instances in which I think it'll be useful. Lorelei's team presents a number of problems for me. 4 of her Pokemon have water as their secondary type, meaning they will resist both of my special moves. The only option I have, therefore, is to rely on the scant amount of normal moves Luvdisc has access to, and her significantly lower physical attack as compared to special. The 2 most important moves are Return, which is a 102 power normal move and the most powerful non-resisted move Luvdisc can use, and Secret Power, which while indoors will be 70 power and have a chance to cause paralysis, kind of like a baby version of Body Slam. Return is the better move overall, simply because of the increased damage, but Secret Power could potentially help me get some really trolly hacks. I have access to Confusion, Attraction, and Paralysis through the moves Attract, Sweet Kiss, and Secret Power, so I could just be the ultimate troll Luvdisc, maybe. It seems pretty terrible, but I have to do some pretty terrible things to win in this run. That said, the resistances are not the only problems Lorelei presents to me. Dugong can set up Hail for Chip or use Safeguard to prevent paralysis. Cloyster can use Protect and Dive to stall me out of PP for important moves, in particular my confusion-causing move. Slowbro can use Yawn to put me to sleep. Jinx can also put me to sleep because of Lovely Kiss. And Lapra has Confuse Ray, which is a 100% accuracy confusion-causing move, in addition to having actual Body Slam. Oh, and remember how I said I wanted to stack Paralysis with Attraction and Confusion? Yeah, forget that part, because Lorelei's team is entirely female, so the Attraction is out the window, and that's by far the most powerful of them as well. While Confusion does still inflict the 50-50 chance and self-inflicted damage, it doesn't last forever, unlike Attraction, and I don't have a 100% reliable way of inflicting it as well. I can only inflict it using a 75% accurate move. And on top of all of that, all of her Pokemon know at least one Ice move, which does have the chance to freeze me. If I get frozen, the battle is pretty much a loss, considering how long you can stay frozen. Theoretically, actually, you can stay frozen indefinitely in Generation 3. You do have a 10% chance to thaw out, but unlike Sleep, there's no turn cap. Sleep, at the very least, rolls the number of turns that you'll be asleep, and you are determined to wake up at the very end. If I get unlucky enough, I could theoretically just always be frozen. It's worth noting as well that Silk Scarf, the item that boosts normal type moves, is for some reason locked behind the post-game on Isle 5 of Zevi Islands. Silk Scarf is one of the least powerful held items you can have, although it's fairly useful in boosting normal type moves, because almost every Pokemon has access to them. The boost is pretty trivial, so I have no idea why they decided that this was so powerful it needed to be locked in the post-game. Some type boosting moves are available before the post-game. For example, wild Pokemon will often be holding Hard Stones or Soft Sand, although it's worth noting that some of the type boosting items, including the ones that I just mentioned, are actually version exclusive. It's so bizarre. Did Game Freak actually think that these were super powerful? Like, don't get me wrong, they're useful in challenge runs, and I'm kind of upset that I don't have access to them, but yeah, So I've actually got leftovers on my Luvdisc, which is hilarious because do you think tank when you look at Luvdisc? I definitely don't. I attempt several different strategies, including one where I use Surf to deal double damage to Cloister while it's underwater because of Dive, but nothing seems to be working. Still, Lorelei is probably the best grind spot for me because, again, I don't care about money, and so bashing my head against this wall until it finally crumbles feels like the correct course of action. And while this took me a long time in real life, I'm just going to skip ahead to the victorious run so that this doesn't end up being a 17-hour video. I decided on a moveset of Secret Power, Return, Sweet Kiss, and Safeguard. The reason for this is stacking Paralysis with Confusion puts me statistically very likely to not get attacked every turn. Leftovers healing can potentially make it so that I survive more than a couple attacks as well. Return is going to deal more damage than Secret Power, and therefore I want to have that on my moveset to do as much damage as possible. And Safeguard is good for both burning turns against Protect and Dive, as well as preventing the various sleep moves like Yawn and Lovely Kiss from putting me to sleep. As an additional benefit, it does also stop me from getting hit by the 10% freeze chance, which, considering how long this battle is gonna drag out, is actually more likely to hit than you think. I decide that getting put to sleep or frozen is basically a death sentence, so I want to have Safeguard up as often as possible. Managing my PP of all four of these moves is extremely crucial, because any wasted PP on return means I'm dealing less damage if I run out. Being unable to confuse or paralyze some of the tankier Pokemon is also very detrimental to my game plan. There's not too much more to say about it. Her Pokemon are very bulky and I'm not dealing that much damage with return, but I slowly chip away at them while maintaining my Safeguard so that I don't get put to sleep. This is a battle of attrition, and for some reason the extremely frail Pokemon is winning against the fairly tanky team. However, part of that is definitely that I'm stacking the odds in my favor with both Paralysis and Confusion, and part of that is that Leftovers is an extremely powerful item. It's also worth noting that I am almost 20 levels higher than her team, and level differences are a pretty big deal in Pokemon. Like, Lorelei's team is made up of better Pokemon, but mine is made up of a single higher level Pokemon. We've gotten to Lapra, which is the farthest that I had ever gotten at this point. So I am sweating bullets. I get the Paralysis and worry that Body Slam is also going to get a Paralysis. This is why I keep trying to get my Confusion and Safeguard up to stop the Paralysis from, going off from Body Slam. And I gotta tell you, my heart was racing at this point, putting Lapra into the red and then realizing, oh no, she has a full restore, so she can get rid of the Paralysis and heal Lapra all the way up to full. I put Safeguard up again. I'm really worried that it's going to go down at like a suboptimal time or something, or I'll run out of Safeguard PP potentially. I'm also getting close to running out of Return PP. I bring Lapra down just to a sliver, and thankfully Lorelei is out of healing items, so that's the first Elite Four member down. Now, Bruno is consistently a joke, and I have a Water-type Pokemon, which is going to deal super effective damage to his ground types that for some reason he has in addition to his fighting types. So I think I'll take this opportunity to talk about my mindset at this point in the run. I've decided that there is no way on earth I want to fight Lorelei again. On my computer right now, I have over a dozen attempt videos, and that's just the ones that I didn't delete because they were so short that I knew they wouldn't be used in this analysis anyway. So I've decided that level 73 is the level that Luvdisc is going to be to take on the rest of the Elite Four. Well, I mean, ignoring the fact that I'm going to be gaining some experience from beating them up, and so maybe I'll be 74 by the time I get to Lance or something. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are, fairly specially bulky, or at least, more so than they are in Generation 1. But, I mean, come on, it's Bruno. Bruno is an absolute joke, and there's no way that... Oh. Well, this is awkward. The biggest problem here is that Hitmonchan knows Rock Tomb, and if Rock Tomb hits me twice, then even with Luvdisc's absurd speed, Bruno's entire team will outspeed me. And they hit pretty damn hard, especially on a squishy Luvdisc. It's kind of sad. Speed is the one thing Luvdisc has going for it, and here, just getting hit by a couple of debuffs will bring it to the point where speed is no longer the only thing Luvdisc has going for it. If anything, this should highlight the power of stat-changing moves, especially stat-changing secondary effects, and how drastically they can change a Pokemon's speed tier, or defensive bulk, or offensive prowess. This is why having access to a setup move is so powerful, and why Luvdisc is suffering from the fact that it doesn't have access to something like Nasty Plot. In fact, you see this sometimes in random Pokemon battles on the Showdown ladders, where they'll give a fairly weak Pokemon a slight level advantage and a setup move, and suddenly it becomes a threat that can compete with the big boys of the randomizer tier. Sadly for us, however, Luvdisc does not have any way to change its own stats. Well, other than Double Team, which, as I mentioned earlier, is banned, so is irrelevant. I guess we're going to do more RNG stuff, aren't we? It's also worth noting that due to the fairly decent special bulk that some of Bruno's non-Onyx Pokemon have, I'm not able to one-shot any of his team. So even if it weren't a problem that I was getting slowed down by Rock Tomb and Scary Face, I am still taking residual chip throughout the fight, and that adds up. It adds up more than leftovers will make up for as well. Whereas I could take a fairly tanky and stally approach for dealing with Lorelei, that's not really an option against Bruno. Sure, I can go for paralysis and attraction and all that fun stuff because he does have a team full of male Pokemon. The longer I draw this battle out, the more likely that the rolls are going to go in his favor, and I can't afford to take too many hits. Machamp, for example, has No Guard and Cross Chop, which is a powerful combination. By boosting my Surfs with Mystic Water, I am able to two-shot Hitmonchan, meaning that I won't suffer the speed drop more than once from Rock Tomb. This gets me to Machamp with extremely low HP, and so my next move is just to hit him with a Sweet Kiss. Because of No Guard, the Sweet Kiss is always going to hit Machamp. Now I just have to hope that the RNG goes in my favor and spam Surf. Theoretically, I could use this turn to attract as well in order to stack the odds even more, but as I said, the more turns that I spend in this battle, the more likely things are going to go wrong for me. Besides, attract is not going to be useful in the Agatha fight because she has all girls, and I'd rather save the TM to replace something else if I need to. There, I finally defeated the trainer who's largely considered to be the easiest member of the Elite Four. This is why we don't talk about Bruno. Next up, I buy a ticket to what is referred to by solo runners as the Agatha Lottery. It's not as bad in Generation 3, especially if you have access to Safeguard, but Agatha relies on sleep moves, confusion moves, and double team. Yeah, the move that I said is so powerful and centralizing that I ban it from being used on Pokemon that don't learn it natively. She has this on multiple Pokemon, including her ace Gengar. Setting up and keeping up Safeguard will protect me from the statuses, however, it won't stop her from using Double Team, and potentially gives her a free turn to Double Team, depending on whether she goes for Hypnosis or Double Team first. Still, it isn't worth the risk of going to sleep, so I do always have to open with Safeguard. Thankfully, the RNG is in my favor this time, because it only takes me 2 attempts to beat Agatha, which is really good, especially for a Pokemon this weak. Solo runs come here to die. Granted, access to Safeguard is a saving grace, and without it we would probably be here much, much longer, but even so, Double Team itself, without any help from Sleep or Confusion, can be a run killer. That brings us to Lance, the final member of the Elite Four, and for him I actually have a pretty unique problem. I want to bring Blizzard into this fight because Ice Beam is not enough to one-shot his Dragonairs, as they are not 4x weak to ice moves. However, my move slot can only hold 4 moves, and I'm not allowed to delete Surf because it's an HM move. I don't want to delete Safeguard because I'm not sure if I'll need it in the champion fight and I can't relearn it. And I don't want to delete Sweet Kiss because same reason as Safeguard. Being able to confuse and prevent statuses has been extremely helpful, and if I lock myself out of doing that, I am potentially soft-locking the run. This means that I have to bring Ice Beam, because if I bring Blizzard instead of Ice Beam, the accuracy and lower PP means I'm not going to be able to use an Ice move on all of Lance's dragons. However, this presents another problem. Ice Beam hits Gyarados for neutral, but it's still fairly low PP, and it's less powerful than Blizzard. So I really need to worry about PP management facing the Gyarados, who is unfortunately Lance's lead. I want to save as many Ice Beams as possible for dealing with the 2 Dragonairs and the Dragonite. I do thankfully get an extremely lucky freeze on the first Dragonair, but then he thaws out almost immediately. I hit it in confusion and it bonks itself instead of attacking me. I decide to start spamming Sweet Kiss and hope that it'll knock itself out just to preserve Ice Beam PP. This strategy is successful and the second Dragonair comes out, who I swiftly hit with another Ice Beam. However, I don't want to waste another Ice Beam here, so I hit it with Surf. Despite being resisted, this deals enough damage to kill, and I've got some leftovers recovery. I'm still in the green, so I Ice Beam the Dragonite. Very, very close to knocking it out, but even with 4x effective, it's not enough. The Citrus Berry also brings it back from the brink, but Ice Beam is still going to kill. At this point, Aerodactyl comes out, but I can hit him for super effective stab surfs, and that's going to be my best option. It is unfortunately not enough, but all he does is fire off a Scary Face. It's kind of weird that I outspeed Aerodactyl, because Aerodactyl is one of the fastest Pokemon of all time, but then again, so is Luvdisc, and also I'm very, very high level compared to him. High enough level to tank a Hyper Beam, apparently. Believe it or not, that was only my second attempt against Lance. Gyarados was the big wall, but once I got through him, the rest of his team kind of crumbled to Luvdisc's moveset. Is Luvdisc secretly meta? Ignore the fact that I am level 75. With my spirits high, I'm hoping I can take down the champion first try, especially because I get a lucky freeze against his lead Pidgeot, meaning I don't have to deal with sand attack shenanigans. I decide to follow this up with Surf. Unfortunately, Full Restore thaws the freeze, but Surf is going to be a 2-shot thanks to a lucky critical hit. Weirdly, the champion then withdraws his Pidgeot, something I haven't seen happen very often. So I switch between, am I going to go Safeguard, am I going to go Blizzard? I went with Safeguard. I probably shouldn't have, because looking at Venusaur's moveset after the fight, it's a Sunny Day set with Growth, Sunny Day, Solar Beam, and Synthesis, which, means Safeguard does nothing for me. Still, I fire off a Blizzard and kill it, and then finish Pidgeot with a Surf, and I am in high spirits. Alakazam and Rhyhorn and Arcanine are both going to be, or all going to be, pretty easy. Wait, I don't one-shot Alakazam? I thought Alakazam was supposed to be very weak. I guess I could go for Blizzard to maybe hope for the extra damage, but Surf is more powerful because of Stab. So I'll go for another Surf, hope for a crit, and he hangs on with the Sliver, and now he's going to just keep recovering. And that's not good for me, because I can't two-shot him. I decide to go for a Sweet Kiss, hope the confusion is enough, and he uses Recover again. Full HP. RIP. This is looking very, very bad. I know that I have the confusion up, but I figured, maybe I'll get some good confusion luck. I can knock him down with a couple of Surfs. He hits himself. We're hanging in there. Surf again. Come on, we got this. Okay, Alakazam is down. We've got Arcanine and Rhyhorn as well as Gyarados. Arcanine and Rhyhorn are no problem, though, because I can deal 4x effective damage to Rhyhorn and 2x effective damage to Arcanine, and neither of them are known for being especially bulky. This looks like it might be a first try victory. Gyarados is the only thing that stands in my way. Intimidate doesn't matter because I'm a special attacker, and I miss a Sweet Kiss, of course, which means that I get hit by an extremely powerful Thrash. I go for Blizzard because it's going to be 1x effective since, water resists and flying is weak, but I miss the Blizzard as well. At least Gyarados is confused now, so missing that Sweet Kiss didn't matter too much, but Blizzard does almost nothing. I really need to hope for good confusion luck in order to take this thing down. And also good blizzard accuracy, which I don't get. Thrash brings me down to 6 HP, and I feel like at this point it's pretty clear I'm going to lose. I'm on a PP for blizzard, so I can only hit with the resisted surf, and Gyarados kills me. RIP. After several failed attempts, I decide that I need a new strategy and go in with an almost entirely new moveset to deal with this team. Since Blizzard can't one-shot Pidgeot anyway, I go with Ice Beam just because of the 100% accuracy. I have to hope that Pidgeot goes for Feather Dance instead of Sand Attack because I don't want to lose accuracy and I'm fine with losing physical attack. Venusaur comes out next, and because all of Gary's Pokemon are going to be male, I can fire off an Attract and lower their chances of doing things. Once again, Safeguard does nothing because Venusaur doesn't have any status moves, so I can just replace that with Attract in order to really try to prevent getting hit with stuff. Ice Beam is unfortunately a 3-shot instead of a 2-shot like Blizzard would be, but Venusaur's most threatening move is Solar Beam, which is going to take 2 turns anyway, so I think it's fine to just take down the giant dinosaur with Ice Beam. You may be sensing a pattern because I end up attracting Alakazam as well, since the little frail Spoon Man is actually not frail enough for Luvdisc to take down easily. Yeah, so we're rolling the RNG on all of these mofos. Surf is a 3-shot, which is kind of ridiculous because that is my most powerful move, and I mean, I'm a glass water gun. I don't really know what I expected, but unfortunately I don't get any lucky critical hits, so I have to continue to spam Surf through 2 full restores on Alakazam. Thankfully, the Attract luck works in my favor, but between healing items and the move Recover, this thing ends up taking way too much time for me to take down. It feels like I'm in Generation 1, with Special being both an offensive and defensive stat, since Alakazam is holding up no matter what. Still, eventually we take the Magician down, so 4th up is the Rhydon. I'm honestly not sure why the champion sends out Rhydon next, but it's an easy W. 4x effective plus Surf plus Ratio plus your White. Anyway, number 5 is Gyarados, and this is the big threat. This is the one I'm most worried about, although as you'll see, this is not the last Pokemon I have to deal with that is frustrating. I fire off an Attract because we're going to be relying on RNG for this one. And then I fire off a Toxic, but yeah, Toxic misses. Whoopsie doopsie. I need to poison and poison stall this Gyarados using Attract and Toxic. Thankfully, for some reason, the AI has decided to go for Dragon Rage 2 turns in a row, as opposed to firing off Thrash, which would deal much more damage. I guess it doesn't want to get confused. The reason that I deleted Sweet Kiss for Attract is just because I figured it would make more sense to try to attract him, which gives a permanent status, as opposed to confuse him, which gives a temporary status, and sometimes he'll inflict on himself by using Thrash anyway. But, yeah, once we have Toxic, we are just Toxic stalling this Gyarados down, which is kind of absurd because we're not really a stall Pokemon, we're an offensive Pokemon. But yeah, it's amazing how the tough fights have required me to pivot from being a sweeper-esque Pokemon to an actual stall-esque Pokemon. I do need to worry about full restores curing the Toxic, but thankfully I am able to chip him down with Surf to the point where an Ice Beam will bring him to the point where Toxic kills. Arcanine is the last threatening Pokemon, and because of extreme speed, I need to be able to knock him out in a single hit. Unfortunately, I can't do that, so I just have to spam Surf and hope that I get lucky. And I get a crit, so GG, easy, I guess. But, wow, that's, yeah. This fight was hard. This fight was really hard. But it was all worth it in the end, because I soloed Pokemon Red with Luvdisc, who, I mean, I was gonna end this by saying quite possibly the worst fully evolved Pokemon, even including Onix, because I feel like, you know, Onix is bad, even if you count him as fully evolved because of Gen 1. But then some people in my comment section pointed out several other Pokemon in contention for the worst fully evolved Pokemon. Most notably, Unknown and Ditto are absolute fucking garbage tier Pokemon who don't have evolutions. Ditto, you can do some fun stuff with, especially if you have Imposter, but even like, you know, there's interesting challenge runs where people have gone through with a Ditto solo or whatever. But Unknown is just on a whole other level because you just get hidden power and you only get one of the hidden powers as well because you can't change your IVs. So yeah, I was wrong. Luvdisc is definitely not the worst fully evolved Pokemon. Unknown is definitely worse, no matter what. You could argue that Ditto is worse, especially in the pre-imposter generations. I would say that situationally it really depends on the game because it depends on what type of Pokemon, like what the leads of enemy trainers, if they tend to be good or bad or whatever. But Unknown is always bad. Unknown is terrible. And yeah, that kind of sucks for me to have made this whole thing on the premise of fighting with the worst Pokemon and then just objectively it's not so. Anyway, bye.